Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Advisicon webinars. My name's Tim Runcie, and I'm going to be your facilitator today. In fact, let me share my screen. Our target topic today that we're going to go through is really understanding some of the latest changes that are happening with Planner Premium, and specifically the AI agent, or as Microsoft calls it, PMA, the Project Management Agent that is available for Planner. This is fairly new. In fact, we've had quite a few changes and a lot of requests for what are the licensing, how does this work? So without further ado, let me jump right in and get us going. If you haven't seen our webinars before, we're Advisicon, and we've been doing a lot of process, technology, and tools and helping organizations mature and implement more with less in many cases, and especially as you're thinking through your PM technology stack. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out anytime. So our agenda, as we kind of zero in on this, is really understanding the use of Copilot. And so you're here that Microsoft, now a $1 trillion company and having the best quarter, and all of it is geared around AI. So what does that mean for us lowly project managers who actually work in different places, or for those of us who are doing strategic planning or looking at how to make sure our teams are more productive? In many cases, organizations have run through and put lots of energy and effort into learning. How does AI work? Some organizations have a good standard process of a project management office, and maybe they have great controls, but now suddenly they're using new technologies that come together. So we're going to take a look at that and how that works, as well as moving through in our specific tool sets for things that'll be helpful for us to work from. So in terms of that, let's start with, of course, Copilot and agents, get a little bit of understanding Microsoft's direction. And then as we continue, we'll talk about seeing what the PMA, or the Project Management Agent, is. And then I'll just jump right into demos. I think it's really helpful for people to understand what it is and how it works, as well as how to anticipate some of the future changes that are coming. Again, as I said, I'm Tim Runcie. You can find me in lots of places, but I'm an advocate for certainly around making sure people can dig in and leverage tools, process, and technology. And it's interesting to see in all the generational changes that Microsoft has put out there, what actually is sticking in places where people are saying, hey, you know what, this is a new tool, it's better. Or maybe it didn't approach it the same way that they did before. So I think it's important for people to understand Microsoft's direction. So first off, over the last couple of weeks, been hearing lots of yelling and lots of noise about, hey, wait a minute, I've got this project management agent, and Microsoft says I only need Copilot to turn it on, not necessarily need a license for that for all my end users. And let me clarify this. So Microsoft's strategy around using Copilot is, think of it like a tool that's designed to improve every product you touch. So basically one license, and if you're in Outlook, you're in Teams, you're in Planner, you're in Microsoft Word or Excel, all of these things start to bring better, and we'll call it the X factor to the table. And Planner Premium is no different to that. So Microsoft really is seeing transformation in work, and they're using AI to begin to speed up or add additional options. But their revenue model, of course, is licensing based. So that's where Microsoft has added that in. So you will need a Copilot license if you want to use the features that I'm going to show you today. So something to consider. Second is that AI in the Microsoft universe, whether you're going to build your own agents or you're going to use agents that are now embedded inside of the products themselves, again, they come with that Copilot license, right? So the idea is if you're buying Copilot for an end user, that's fantastic. If you want to begin building agents, I think we've got a webinar that we put out. I think Jeff posted and I put one out about the different AI products, and there's quite a few of them out there. I think there's like 25 different Microsoft AI products for building tool sets. But if you need Copilot Studio to build your agents, that your agent calls another agent to do different things, think of it like functions. So Microsoft is separating the idea of using Copilot as a boost to all of M365 versus, say, Copilot Studio, where you may want to build your own agents, create your own knowledge bases. So inherently embedded in Planner Premium is this PM agent, this project management agent, or PMA. And of course, there's plenty of things to work from there. So the enabling of that Copilot license does a couple things for people. Number one, you'll see a little rocket symbol here in a few minutes, and you're going to see that when you see that, it's basically a supercharge or basically rocketing through some of the new features, including leveraging functionality like creating status reports, basically creating tasks or goals, or looking at a knowledge base and bringing suggestions in for you to use. In fact, what's interesting is that is the Copilot tool set in play, the idea of a project manager having to know everything about everything is not always the case. In fact, a lot of people hire project managers, or if you're not formally a PMP and you've gone through the deep, dark arts of learning project, program, or portfolio management, you can use the Copilot to help boost your industry-specific experience to generate your schedules and to put things together for you, as well as leveraging key goals out of strategy or documents. And so there's also this thing called whiteboards, which a lot of people know that it is free within Microsoft 365. You don't have to buy a license. But what Microsoft's doing is starting to infuse these pieces together so that you can see and use them all in one place. So the PMA, the project manager agent, is really designed to be a boost for people to jump in and begin to rapidly build schedules, to critique your schedule, improve your schedule, or provide suggestions, similar to like a lot of people refer to as having a good template. But in this case, it will go more and actually build you status reports. It'll share information for you so that you can either collaborate, and we'll talk about some of the collaboration portals that it uses, as well as leveraging some of the key things and the basics all around the schedule. So first off, let's kind of take a look at what we have in general around some of the elements in and around the project manager agent. So first off, let me share my screen here. There are a couple terms I want to bring to the table, and that is the difference between the project management, or we'll call it the planner agent, embedded in the app in Teams. So basically, Planner Premium is an app in Teams, and you can see that right here on my screen, where in fact when you come in, you can pick your planner board, you can pick your planner schedule, but when you go in there, you've got this Planner Premium environment as an app in Teams, or if I Alt-Tab back, you hear the term planner for the web, which is really a browser-based view of some of the same things. So if I decide to go in and take a look at a particular planner agent or a planner schedule, is when I open it up, you'll notice that I've got this basically web-based view of some of the same type of information. A lot of people get confused. Is it project for the web? Is it planner for the web? Well, everything's moving into the planner platform. And so the project manager agent is designed to be a Copilot license to supercharge that product, whether you're in the browser view or you happen to be over in your Microsoft Teams app. Same data, just looking at it a little bit differently. And there's pros and cons to that. But let's go through a process right now. In fact, let me showcase a few things. You'll notice I've got a little preview rocket here. You'll see in Planner Premium, we have a thing called Reports. That's new. And Whiteboard, for a lot of you who may not have played with Whiteboard, suddenly enabled in my environment. So let's start off and create a plan with Planner Premium. And because I have the Copilot license turned on, it's going to give me some additional options. And I'll just kind of run you through what you're going to see so you can decide if this is something that can help you. So first off, I'm going to click on New Plan. And it comes up here, which most of you may have seen this before, where you've got the basic. This is called Planner for M365. This is kind of the free version that comes out there. Doesn't have a Gantt chart. And then we have Planner Premium, which again gives you the schedule, gives you the Gantt chart. We have resourcing. We actually have Power BI reports. There's things that kind of come along with it that Microsoft makes available. But more appropriately, as we dig in, we now have this thing called Plan with the Project Manager. Now, I'm going to play around with some of these, but first off, I can enable this at any time. Basically, I can turn it on and have it generate a plan, or I can start with a template. In fact, you're going to notice that there are even more templates that Microsoft is adding to the table, and so we intend to see more of those coming out, and we certainly want to take advantage of that. In this case, why don't I grab one? Why don't I just do let's do software development. Let me click on software development, and I'm going to just tell it to use a template. So first off, it wants a name for this, and I'm just going to call this webinar software dev. And it's also going to ask for a security group. Now, this is something I want to impress upon you. The Microsoft Teams or the Microsoft Security Group that is found with Microsoft Teams, or when you build a SharePoint site and you talk about using classic or modern, when you enable these, Microsoft is creating this object called a security group. And if you want to use Teams to help provide governance around that, then you need to select it. Otherwise, if you've got a classic site and you bumped it up to modern, you didn't do that in terms of the new SharePoint world, these SharePoint objects basically just go, look, you didn't create it as something that we can manage or leverage through Teams. You're going to have to either use some PowerShell scripting, or you're going to have to basically recreate and migrate your thing. So in a nutshell, what this is that if I create a team or a security group ahead of time, I can go and launch a planner board or a planner schedule with Planner Premium and say, you know, I already have a team or a channel for that. And so in this case, I'm going to go and grab one here that's already created. And again, this allows me to use Microsoft Teams to include more people. I can actually see the list of resources available, and I can always add them if I need to. So let's just talk about doing, well, that's the wrong demo. It won't matter. Let me pick one here. And let's see here. Oh, here we go. Webinar Wednesday. Perfect. Let's go ahead and click on Create. And so now I'm synced into a team and a channel that's created, and I actually have some users that might be in there. And the idea is it starts off with, you know, kind of a template or a series of activities. Now, if you're looking up here, as I kind of set these things up, I can set up a schedule, a grid, and you see charts. But when I want to begin looking at enabling some of my Copilot features, again, if I want to turn this on, you're going to have to come in and actually add some of those views in place. So if I go back to the grid view, you'll see that it started out with a simple schedule. And you're going to find that if I'm using basic plan or a board or a schedule, this is really giving me my basic environment. So if I come back here and I go back to my plans, and this time I'm going to say, let's not just create any old plan. I want it to be a plan with my project manager agent. And I'm going to go ahead and call this Webinar Software Development 2. And let's go ahead and pick a group here. I'll just do my Agile Project Management and go ahead and click on Create. You notice it's going to take a little bit longer. Yes, I can still apply a template, but as you notice on the ribbon here or at the top where my menu or buttons are, you'll see I've got this preview. And as I come in here, you'll notice also I have a feature called Copilot. And I'm going to show you a little bit of difference of using both the Project Manager agent and also where kind of Copilot always turned on. It's going to provide services to any schedule that you put in place. So if I click on Copilot, of course, it gives me the option to create or build a plan for a marketing campaign. I can pick different templates. I can also come through and answer questions. And you'll also notice in the lower right-hand corner, let me zoom this for you guys, is that you can look at creating or establishing goals. You can also create actions, and we can look at where we're drawing for the information. In fact, I can manage where my content is coming from. So right now, it's turned on, it's enabled to say, look through my entire Microsoft 365 tenant and areas that I have accessibility to, I can draw from information that's there. I also, perhaps, maybe I have a library, and this is kind of funny. Notice I'm trying to click on attach, but I got to actually click a little lower to get it to fit. So I've had people ask, hey, wait, attach isn't working. I'm clicking, nothing. You got to go just a wee bit lower. I think that's just a spacing issue. But the idea is that if I want to be able to say, hey, as I come in here, I want to not just manage content, but I want to look at where I can draw my files from. I can draw from and assign them to people. I can go and leverage knowledge that comes from different sources. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say, you know, I really want to have a general AI strategic workshop. We did a planning session from there, and I want to build a schedule from the library of actions or tasks or a roadmap from any document. So what's great about this is I can add files, and as I add these in place here, and I hit this little go button, I can just say, hey, you know what? I want to look at creating goals or tasks around this. And what it's going to do is going to analyze your documentation that says, hey, if you have an outline or a structure, what we can do is we can draw that information in. I can give you an idea of what that looks like, and I can certainly list or explain actions or tasks that you have available. But if I also want to come back in here and say, thank you, that's great, Copilot, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to build a plan. And so notice I click on here, build a plan. And then I'm going to tell it that, let me click a little bit lower. There we go. And I'm going to say, you know what, go grab that same file that we were looking at, whether we're thinking about goals or a demo. And I want to build a plan. Notice that this is dealing with our prompt information, is that the AI agent and Copilot are going to give you an option here to leverage the idea to create, to understand, or to edit. So the idea is, am I going to analyze this schedule? Am I going to edit or update or assign work to people? That prompt is different. And so now if I go ahead and say, hey, let's build a plan, leveraging this document, I can actually fold some of this information in. The project manager agent is sitting there waiting for us to be able to create goals and tasks basically around some of my information. And we can fold this data in. So right now, you'll notice my screen starting to flash here. It's looking through that Word document. And so if I actually open this plan, let's just kind of cool here is if I want to look at the document, I can actually click on it. And because we're in Microsoft 365 and I have provided this, I've created a training outline or a training course around what we want to do and how we're going to deliver that. So you can leverage your strategic goals or documents. You can create outlines in Excel. You can pull in information from different sources, and you can come back to your Planner Premium schedule and have your PM agent basically build or generate that schedule for you directly. So let me hop back into Teams, into my Teams app here, and you notice that what it just did is it created a schedule based upon the information that we have here. Now, again, this is in its raw form, but if I start to say, well, listen, I want to go in and I want to start using my schedule, like, for example, I want to pop into goals, you'll notice that it said, hey, while I'm looking in here, the Planner Premium product allows you to put in strategic goals. And I can come in here and it actually created the goals out of this document, and then it aligned a series of activities or actions that I have. And if I want to manage that through this part of the schedule, I can do that directly. So your project manager agent is going to help you speed up the process of starting with strategy, creating tasks, or generating tasks, and then inversely being able to add or amend or modify your goals. All helpful. Now let me close Copilot real quickly here. And then let's pivot a little bit out of goals. I want to pop over here to this reports section. The idea of a report is that as you begin modifying your schedule, if you have 10 rows or more, notice if you have less than 10 rows, it's not going to run. It actually needs to have a fairly significant schedule, meaning that as you're building this out, the more details that you'll have, it'll actually create a status report based upon that schedule. Well, in this example, I haven't really come out here and added durations. I haven't added predecessors. So let me jump to a different plan. But the idea of quickly assembling, generating it, and then begin organizing both your strategy and goals is your PM agent will help you with that. If I pop into an existing plan that I built here, notice I got 11. There's the key there. I pushed it past 10 specifically. And what I did here is I'm actually looking at taking and generating some reports. In fact, when I click on Generate Reports, you can see that I've run a couple status reports ahead of time. In fact, in many cases, PMs are always building these reports on a weekly basis. So if I go out to my timeline view and I'm progressing schedule or moving things forward and backwards, or maybe I'm modifying the percent complete, or I see I'm ahead or behind, overall, the idea is that as we progress these and we are looking at our ability to have snapshots, is that when I go over to reports, which now comes with that project manager agent, is it'll generate a status report on a weekly basis if you want, and then you can share that. And what's important about this is that Planner Premium's agent is going to start using some new technology called Loop. Some of you may be familiar with the Loop technology, and I'm going to show that to you in a moment. But the idea of having a collaboration canvas that isn't just an old SharePoint site, or it isn't just a document Teams library, is actually very, very interactive. So let me open one of these up real quickly. I ran one back in May. This is things that I can kind of beat up and play with on a regular basis. So let me click on this, and it says, hey, when you ran this in May, here's an executive summary. What is done? What is not done? What's completed? What's overdue? What's in progress? What about the tasks that are going on? And as we look at key milestones, it'll actually summarize that for you. And again, if I have highlighted achievements, I certainly can insert my own rows here and add comments. This is actually Microsoft Loop. It's basically called a loop, and you have loop components that you can embed in here. I'll show you these in a few minutes about what they are and how that works. But the idea is that you can begin telling the story, very similar to what we've done in OneNote, or some of you who may be even referencing wiki pages in SharePoint where people would come and you could see that information. Here's my work in progress, here's upcoming action items, and then who generated the status report. So by generating this out of your schedule, which includes notes, checklist, attachments, we're able to see this. And while I'm in here, you'll notice that if I want to view any past reports, or I want to generate or refresh my view, I certainly can. So I don't have to generate a weekly report. I might just have one that I refresh. But inherently, the idea is that I can look at the data. I can also look at the information here. I can also check to see who's seeing it. And when I look in terms of our reports or viewing information, let me just open up Loop for a moment so you can see this. So let me click on Loop. And it says, let me share with you the objects and artifacts that have been made available to this. So you notice here that I've got a description. You can see the description of the details. You can see some of the task list. I can also take a look at the whiteboard. For example, if you want to create the Microsoft whiteboard where you begin hovering around goals and checklists and brainstorming, having that free form flow example, you can marry these pieces together, and Loop is keeping track of these so you can actually wed and link them together. You can also come in and look at the document. So here's my LATAM goals document that I use to build this, and any other related information. And more appropriately is that Loop is designed to help you basically tell a story. So an example, if this is my marketing plan and I have executive summaries and I have goals and competitive analysis, things here, I can actually set up these Loop pages and add Loop components inside of that. So Planner can be a Loop component, meaning that you can take a Planner schedule and embed it in a separate Loop page to tell your story about your tasks and your work that's going on. Inversely, you can also keep that wedded together inside of your environment. So if I jump back into my PM agent here, let me just do the browser view, not the app view. Again, coming in and looking at some of that information here. I can standardize and look at my goals. If I pop over and say, let's take a look at our reports, again, here's the reports. And again, I can refresh these or generate new ones. And it takes a few minutes to actually run and generate. But there's some great feedback that you can actually put inside of there. And even when you begin putting these in place, you'll notice that you have different pre-built buckets, meaning that as you go through and you create assignments with Copilot, and you create assignments and not just tasks, you can see what's been assigned to the project manager agent, things that need to be reviewed. And again, just like any Kanban board, you can move, you can drag, you can drop these, and you can flag and tag these. But the PM agent in the board allows you to see these. And again, this is grouped by project manager. I can flip it back to the bucket view, which a lot of us are very familiar with and using with the legacy planner. But we've got these options that have a project manager grouping that allows us to let Copilot identify problems, surface issues, things that need to be reviewed, and we can go through using this tool set directly. Again, using that Loop embedded component, seeing my whiteboard here in the browser. Give it a second to refresh. Here it comes. And again, I can add these pictures or graphics, in terms of supplementing and storytelling. So while the project manager agent is in what I consider in it's not quite its infancy, because it's had a couple renditions and changes, it will continue to grow in strength as an agent to run behind the scenes to help you identify problems. And with Copilot itself, you can always come back in and say, you know what, I love what's going on here, but maybe I want to get some additional help, or I want to create goals that grow the business. And let's see what Copilot will come up with. And again, if I want to align it with my knowledge base or a document, I can actually see these things. And if I want to go to my goals, click on Go to Goals, and it will continue to add and increase options right here, giving me tasks and titles. You can do it manually, but you can also have AI begin to research, pull things together. So a lot of this, especially for the new project managers, or if you're new in a field and maybe don't know a whole lot, AI as an industry agent that is continuing to learn is going to improve and get better and be able to draw from knowledge, not just out of your head, but from other places. So again, I wanted to give everybody a quick update is what are we getting when we add Copilot to Planner Premium? Pretty exciting to have that there. And again, you'll even get notifications. In fact, mine's just telling me I've got a whole bunch of tasks that are popping up that I need to review. So again, looking at it and assigning people to our goals and also creating a list of history are all part of Planner. But now the project manager agent is helping to speed that process along and allows me to look at what's ready to be modified. Here it is seeing my schedule. Notice that this is ready for review. This should have been done on 8/22. And so as I run the status reports and as I let the AI agent, it will continue to surface issues, problems, or points of interest, as well as helping you generate your schedules. So with that being said, there are lots of fun things you can do. One last thing I did want to show you about your reports is that while it's nice to see a Loop component or fire it up in Loop, a lot of organizations use SharePoint commonly internally. So if I want to share my status report on my large schedule, my planner board out here, I can click and say, you know what, convert this into SharePoint, and we're going to have kind of a newsletter that I can send people a link to. So I don't have to make them jump into Planner, Planner Premium, click on Loop, open it up, and go 3 clicks to get there. The idea is that I can bring that information, and let's just see if it gives a second here for it to refresh. It's still loading, but what it will do is it'll build that report into a static page for me. It'll share that information. It does take a second to generate, so I probably should have click that a little bit sooner. But again, the idea of taking that overall view or that vision of the reports, of the details, and let me go back to my reports here, and then asking to see this in a page allows it to open up. Let me refresh this to see if it's finished. It does take a second because it pulls all of those details that we saw in Loop, and it reloads this site as well as the permission structure that we have available. Here it goes. It's getting there. Almost there. It's co-authoring in real time. Yes, thank you, Microsoft. We got it. And it's still laying out my page here. But you get the idea is that I don't have to spend time manually building a PowerPoint or writing a significant Word document. What I can do is pull out the information directly out of my plan, out of the documentation, out of the goals, and I can actually set this up, and then I can send people a link. You'll notice that in the modern versus classic, I can see some of these pieces that are being put together. And it's identifying some risks. Here's that status report. It's still building it right on the fly. Here we go, about your project. And we should see the content from our timeline section also coming in place, including our milestones. So again, the whole idea of the agent is to speed up that process, help you learn, help you generate ideas, to make sure you haven't missed something, also to identify and basically bring to the surface things that you should look at as a project manager. And if you still want to share that in the old legacy SharePoint environment versus Loop, either or, completely accessible. And of course, you can always go into Teams. In fact, let me bring up Teams here. And let me go to, let's see here, my team environment. Whoops, let me pull that over and let me hop into, here we go, bring that up here for you guys to see that. So in here, I can put Loop in terms of a channel. So if I have a productivity team here called Tools Demo, I set up a channel if I want to. I can always add information that says, hey, let's add that Loop component here and continue to make that story. So again, remember, content is accessible in lots of places, and that storytelling that you're working through, you can share and you can make that available for people to see. PMA, the project management agent, very helpful in speeding that process. So with that being said, let me return back to PowerPoint here, and we'll kind of conclude our today's session. So again, understanding, what does it mean for you? What are your AI next steps? One of the things is if you want it, turn it on. It's a license. It's basically Copilot, not Copilot Studio, but Copilot for the end user. And then you can play around with the content creation. In fact, if you want to leverage documentation that you've already mapped or put together or had strategy sessions, it really does a good job than having to keystroke all those things in again. And remember, this trains your generative model. Remember, AI is a learning tool. So the more we use it, the more we utilize it in your own environment, it gets smarter and better, and it's able to leverage and reference information both either from the internet or knowledge sources that you point to. So as I mentioned, you could lean into your own libraries, your own documents to tell it what you're looking for. And then one of the conversational things I encourage people to do is that if you're using Loop or OneNote or SharePoint, you may want to wrestle through what makes the most sense for you to work with. Microsoft intent is to use Loop as a canvas to generate and regenerate information. And so it's pretty exciting to play with. But again, remember, you don't have to stay there. You could certainly leave it or generate SharePoint sites. A lot of us old school folks who've had OneNote and played around a long time like that organization structure. But I recommend working through that because there is no wrong way. What you need to find is what works best for you and your organization. And again, have fun. Dig in there, play with it. It's certainly been a lot of fun for us. And again, even before I shot this video, I went in, I said, oh, they moved something over here. They popped it over there. So even month after month, things continue to change, but it will get better. It will add more things to you to play with. And again, that's where the Microsoft Planner team is working through. So as we go through today, if you are interested in help or coaching or you have questions anytime, reach out to Advisicon. Any one of my staff will be happy to answer questions for you. And as you think through what I call that business transformation, we have websites where there's free training, YouTube channel, this is out there. Maybe you're watching it from there. But I encourage people to reach out because things are moving quite fast. And if you want to know more or how to dig in, check out our learning links, check out what Amanda, our marketing director, sends out, or even just send me or any one of my staff a question and we're happy to answer and point you in the right direction. Again, thank you for your time today. I hope this was educational for you, and we wish you best of luck in your project management. Take care.